Mark Gibbs, Sales and Marketing Manager here at Boatmate Trailers. In today's video, we're going to go over some general service questions that a lot of you guys have. Also, we're going to tell you about things that you should check before you head off to the lake to make sure you and your family get to the lake every time. Hey guys, I'm excited to introduce you to our project engineer here at Boatmate, Daniel Luby. How's it going, Daniel?
Great, Mark. How are you today?
I'm doing great. You know, Daniel here, he's going to help us answer a lot of the questions that many of you guys have that call. So Daniel, I always get phone calls about people saying, you know what, I've accidentally pulled my emergency brake cable, and what do I do?
Well, Mark, one of the first things to look at is the cable itself. A lot of times people can forget that the cable's attached to the vehicle and they'll pull away and they'll pull it hard enough to either straighten this hook or there's a little washer on the inside of this cable. It'll pop that washer off and you'll begin to see a yellow portion of the cable. A lot of times if it's been pulled that hard, the way that this cable is designed is if it pulls, it's designed to clamp the brakes down on the trailer. And inside of the actuator, the way it's intended to work is it actually deforms inside there to make sure that the brakes stay applied on the trailer. So if it's pulled hard enough that it straightened this hook, a lot of the times what we have to look at doing is replacing the actuator itself.
Now let's just say, for example, that, you know, maybe it's just barely been pulled, maybe the kids ran by and yanked on it a little, and we don't see anything wrong with the cable. Then what do we do?
Yeah, again, great question. A lot of times it's easy just to trip over and catch with your foot. One of the things that we like to tell people is you're getting the coupler hooked up to your vehicle each time. Right here on the underside of the actuator, there's a little button. So you just want to make sure that you're reaching down and making that part of the habit, that you push that button as part of the process of getting hooked to the vehicle. If you push that button and you hear the actuator click, a lot of that times that means that the brake has been applied, so you'd want to pay attention. If you do hear it click, one of the things that I would recommend is when you go tow it around for a minute or when you get to the lake, push it again and see if it clicks again. If it does click again after towing it, that usually means that there's probably something wrong in there, but if not, which is what happens in most cases, then that's good. That's release the brakes and you're good to go.
Now Daniel, I know that all Boatmate trailers have four-wheel disc brakes or brakes on all their axles. I mean, the main reason is these boats are getting so heavy and the tow vehicle must stop, but we definitely have to have brake fluid in our reservoir in order to operate, right? So what do I do to check my brake fluid?
Absolutely. So most of our trailers are equipped with what we call the surge brake system. And the way this works is as the trailer pushes against the vehicle, the harder the trailer pushes against the vehicle, the harder it applies the brakes. And all that is housed within this housing right here. So this plastic cap that's on the top of the tongue here, if you'll twist it and pop it off, and then inside here there's a little rubber plug that you can take off. When you look at the rubber plug, it has a little dipstick in the middle of it. So you just want to make sure that the fluid is at least touching that dipstick on the rubber plug. If it's low, you can just add some fluid to it. If there's no fluid in it, you need to be careful, and if you have to add, then you want to check for a leak and make sure you don't have a leak anywhere in your system. But if it's to the point that there's no fluid in the reservoir, when you do add fluid, you're going to want to look at cleaning your brakes too. And we have instructions for that on our website.
Now, let's just say I have low in fluid. Where do I go and what kind of fluid do I get?
So the type of fluid that you can add to this is the same DOT3 premium brake fluid that you can buy at any auto parts store anywhere. You just pick it up, add it to the reservoir until it touches the dipstick, just like we discussed, and that'll be good to go. The one thing that we do have to be careful of on boat trailers is brake fluid is an alcohol-based fluid. So over time, what that means is it will absorb moisture. So after about 2 or 3 years, that can make your brakes a little spongy. So we recommend about every 3 years that you just do a full flush of the brake system and put all new brake fluid in the entire trailer.
That way, no matter how much gear you have in the boat, you'll definitely stop every time.
That's exactly right.
You know, Daniel, a lot of times I get calls from people and they ask questions about having a little bit of slop and stuff. I mean, is this a maintenance item or do I do anything about that?
It's a good question, Mark. One of the things that we have is we've got 2 different style swing tongues that we install on our trailers. One of them is what we call our cast pivot. You can tell that because the bolt and the pin are in front and back of each other on the trailer. This is the other style we have, which we call our binocular style. Now the binocular style will require maintenance over time. And what we do with that is we'll actually remove the pin, and then with the pin removed, you tighten this bolt down until the tongue becomes hard to swing open. And once it's in a bind that it's hard to swing open, Then you just take and back this nut off 1/4 turn, and that'll tighten everything back up.
So basically anybody with a ratchet system or anything should be able to do that right at home.
That's exactly right. Otherwise, over time, it will allow more and more movement. It'll start wearing out this top and bottom plate, and it'll just introduce more slop to your tongue.
Excellent. You know, Daniel, all the time I get customers calling me late at night, early in the morning. They say, Mark, I cannot back up my trailer. Whether their lights aren't working properly or something like that. Explain to me how this whole reverse solenoid works and how I can back up this trailer when the trailer ultimately thinks I'm stopping.
So we talked earlier about how the surge brake system on this trailer works. So when the trailer pushes against the vehicle, it applies the brakes. So obviously, if you're going to try to back up, you're going to push the two together and it's going to apply the brakes. So the way we overcome that is we have a solenoid on the back side of the master cylinder that will allow the brake fluid to recirculate back into the reservoir, thus just leaving the brakes free. The way that thing works is it's energized from the reverse lights of your vehicle. So whenever you go to try to back up, you've got to make sure your lights are connected. And more often than not, what we find is there's an issue with either a ground or the reverse power from the vehicle than the actual solenoid itself. So the first thing I would recommend is if you've got another vehicle available and you're having problems with yours, hook it up to the other vehicle and see if it works. You know, a lot of times, a lot of these newer vehicles have separate fuses for the trailer reverse signal. So it can be a little confusing sometimes to make sure that all the fuses are good in your vehicle. If you've checked your vehicle out and you've checked these against somebody else's vehicle, then we can go and start trying to troubleshoot the reverse solenoid. Probably the best thing to do is contact our service department. We've got some really well spelled out job instructions we can send out to the customer. We'll give them some troubleshooting details to go through to isolate where exactly the problem is. And if it turns out being an issue with the reverse solenoid, then it's a pretty quick fix that we can get.
Now, I mean, do I have to not go to the lake that day if I can't back up? I mean, I know that in my owner's packet, I get this little key-like thing. I mean, what do I do with that? What is that for?
So in every owner's packet, we send out what we call a reverse lockout. And what that allows is if you are having issues, you can take that little key thing and insert it in the slot in the side of the actuator. What that does is it keeps the actuator from compressing and applying the brakes. So we send that out in this exact situation. If the reverse solenoid isn't working, that reverse key is what allows you to keep backing up. So I'd recommend to all the customers that they take that key out of their packet and probably put it in the glove box of their vehicle. You may never need it, but when you do need it, it's good to have it.
That's really good information, thank you. Now Daniel, I know a lot of people ask about the 18-inch wheels specifically, and you know, how much do you torque them? Do you torque them often? Things like that. So tell me about torquing my 18-inch wheels, or even let's say my 14 or 15-inch wheels, and explain to me why it's very, very important for me to do that.
Yeah, so almost all of our wheels that we install on our trailers now are alloy wheels. And the difference in the alloy wheels versus the old trailer steel wheels is the steel wheels had what they call the Belleville washer clip. So when you tightened the lug nut down, it had some of that spring action in the wheel itself, which would allow it to stay tight over time. The alloy wheels don't have any give into them, so what they rely on is the stretch of the lug stud to stay tight. One of the other things that's different about our trailer wheels versus, let's say, the wheel on your truck is our wheels are what we call lug-centric. The wheels on your truck are hub-centric, so they rely on the hub to keep it centered, where we rely on even pressure across all of the lug studs to keep the wheels centered on the hub. So where that becomes important is if you have one or two of your lug nuts that starts to back off or that you forgot to tighten, then it'll start to allow some vibration to happen in that wheel, and you can potentially get into a situation where either you notice it or maybe you don't notice it behind your truck and you have a wheel separation. That's why we really, really push for everyone when they first receive their Boatmate trailer to make sure that they check the torque on the wheels. We recommend that all lug nuts be torqued down to 115 foot-pounds. We then recommend that they check them again after the first 50 miles, again after 250 miles, and then just periodically thereafter. There's almost a little bit of a break-in period of these as the lug studs and nuts stretch in. So that's why it's important to just keep an eye specifically on these alloy wheels, on these lug-centric hubs, so that we can ensure that we're getting to and from the lake safely.
Now let me ask you a question. Like, I got a big heavy duty compressor with a big impact gun. Like, What if I don't have it in, what if I don't have a torque wrench and I just go on there and I just keep tightening and tightening? I mean, will that work? Is that fine?
Well, a lot of people think that that will work, but sometimes you can over tighten. You can actually maybe spin out the stud in there, and then you won't be able to get the lug nut back off. It'll have to be cut off, or you may overstretch that stud and actually shear it off yourself. So that's fine if you want to run it on just a little bit with the impact, but you really need to make sure you have a torque wrench or take it to a shop that has a torque wrench so you can make sure these are doing properly.
And what was that torque specification one more time?
It's 115 foot-pounds.
Excellent. You know, since we live here in Tennessee, I know that you can't use your boat and your trailer all year long. So, you know, I let my boat and trailer sit in the driveway all winter long. And, you know, a lot of times I'll just hook up in the summer and I'll take off. But I'm oftentimes forgetting to check my tire pressure. Will you tell me why my tire pressure is so important?
Yeah, Mark, just like your truck or vehicle, when you look inside the door, there's a little tag that tells you what you should fill your tires up to. The same as in your owner's manual. Well, the trailers have the same thing. If you look up next to the VIN tag, there's a little tire tag that'll tell you exactly what your specific trailer is supposed to be inflated to. The tires are supposed to be inflated to. The way that we design the capacities of the trailer are actually based around the max capacity or the max inflation pressure of the tire. So when you look and read the max pressure, cold pressure on the tire, this particular tire is going to say 50 psi max pressure. And if you look at the recommended pressure on the tire tag, it's also 50 psi. One of the important things to keep in mind in terms of trailer tires is an ST rated tire, and that's what we mount on all of our 14 and 15 inch wheels. One of the inherent characteristics of the tire is it is going to lose air pressure, about 1.5 pounds per week. So just like you put your boat in, you leave it in over the summer, you come back and get your trailer, it's probably lost 15 or 20 pounds. You know, you get that out, and if you've got to drive down the interstate for an hour, it's not more than likely if you're going to have a blowout, but when you're going to have a blowout. So that's why it's important every time to check the pressure on the tire and make sure you're inflating it to the max PSI listed on the tire at a cold temperature, which is also listed on the tire tag up front.
Excellent. Daniel, when I was a young kid and hub technology wasn't what it was, I remember having to run in the garage and get the old grease gun out and got my hands all greasy and got done that zerk fitting, pump the grease in. Nowadays you don't have to do that, do you?
No, Mark, you don't. Not with the vault system. Fortunately, we found some great partners in companies like UFP that help us develop products to support our customers the way that we would love to. They came up with this vault system, which is a hybrid oil grease lubricated system. When you look at their specific oil, it is the Vault Hybrid. When it's cold out of the tube, it looks like grease. You would pack it in the hub and pack it in the cap just like you normally would, and then you would knock the cap on to get it in there good and tight. As that hub heats up, the viscosity lowers in that oil or in that grease, and it becomes more of an oil. That way it's able to get all the way back through that hub and make sure that it's good and lubricated all the way front to back. There's also several oil journals in the spindle that let it travel all the way to the backside and work its way back out. That's one of the things that allows this to be a 5-year maintenance-free system. One of the other features of this, along with the 5-year maintenance-free system, is UFP does offer to extend the warranty on it. So when you receive your new Boatmate trailer, there's a warranty registration card in there. You can send them $50, and then it makes it a 10-year system. Anything that happens to this over that 10 years, UFP will cover.
Now let's just say I head into a gas station and everything, and I notice that my end cap is completely gone, and maybe I have some grease on my wheel and everything. I mean, what do I do?
Don't sweat it. Don't let it ruin your day. This is a proprietary system. It's not like you can go to the store and buy Vault oil or Vault lubricant, but that's not going to end your trip. You can go to any auto parts store, usually even a Walmart, and get the same size cap, the same old style cap that you were talking about. You can get an NLGI number 2 grease, just repack it in the cap and put that cap and that other grease back on there and continue your trip. When you get done and you're back at the house, you can take it back to your dealer. They can go back in and clean everything back out and get the Vault system back installed on it.
Excellent. Sounds like a great assembly and everything. And you know what I like best? Maintenance free.
Exactly.
These lights are super, super cool. And as a boat owner and definitely a trailer owner as well, I want to protect my lights and everything, and I don't want them to burn out or anything. So when I'm backing in the water, am I supposed to unplug my lights?
Mark, that was an old school mentality when all the lights were on trailers were incandescent. One of the reasons we chose the partners that we do is we've started installing LED lights on all of our trailers. And all of the LED lights through the manufacturer that we buy through come with a lifetime guarantee. These lights are fully sealed. We put an engineered harness on the trailer as well. So if anything happens as far as if moisture does get into the light, if you end up with any of your LEDs burn out, it's covered under warranty. You just need to take some pictures of it and give us a call and shoot us those pictures and we can get it replaced. But outside of that, there's no concerns about having to unhook your harness anymore before you go in, before you drop into the water, have to worry about reconnecting it. Just forget about it. Just back in, drop your boat off, and go enjoy your day.
Well, let's just say I live hundreds of miles away from my dealer and everything, and maybe I just have a little bit of water in my light, and hey, I'm pretty good. I can change things out. Is there any other options other than dragging it all the way to my dealer?
Yeah, that's great. I mean, it is simple. So you can file a warranty claim yourself through boatmateparts.com. Do the same thing, take a picture, submit it with your claim. We'll send the light directly to you. You are correct. It's really simple. It unplugs right out of the back. There's 4 rivets that hold it in that you can drill out. We'll send you replacement rivets for it, and then you just put the new light back in.
Excellent. Now, I know a lot of times people, customers and dealers call me and say, hey, we've got the boat on top of the trailer, but we're noticing that the lag bolts have what looks like they've loosened up. I mean, is that normal? Is that going to happen? And if it does happen, what do I do?
It's a good question. So we install our boards with 2 different style bolts. One of them is just a carriage bolt where we actually bolt it through the top, and there's 1 single bolt sticking out the bottom and 2 nuts holding on. We're trying to work towards getting more of our trailers over that system, and over the years you'll see almost all of our trailers installed that way. The other way that we've done it, the way we've always traditionally done it, is through 2 lag bolts through the bunk brackets. Now, with the boards going in and out of the water and the temperature outside, that board's going to shrink and swell and naturally try to push that lag bolt back out. So over time, they may notice those lag bolts being a little loose. So it's probably good practice to 1 or 2 times a season. Just have a look underneath. You can tell if the washer's loose and tighten that lag bolt back up. The one thing you would be careful is you don't want to put an impact on it necessarily and spin the hole out of the wood. So just a simple ratchet and just get it good and snug back down there will be sufficient.
Thank you for the time that you've spent with Daniel and myself today, and I hope you're better prepared to head off to the lake this summer. For any other questions, feel free to contact us at www.boatmatetrailers.com. Thanks again, and I hope you have a wonderful summer.